Hello, Patriots, prank citizens, and truth seekers. Today is Sunday, December 29th, 2019. We have lots of new Q to look at, specifically regarding these people and the fact that they are fighting for their lives. And Q takes us down a path reminding us of the things that we have seen and heard in the media over the past 2 years, and all of it having been planted in our understanding by Q. So let's get right to it. So this came out the other day, and it is a repeat, but it's a nice little summary. Imagine what would happen if by law every U.S. congressman or woman, U.S. senator, president, etc., was by U.S. law audited every 1 to 2 years by an independent agency. Imagine what would happen if those audits extended to all family members of such elected official. Would D's continue to push for foreign aid to other countries versus the homeland? What happens when the kickbacks dry up? M. Waters' $4 million house? N. Pelosi net worth $150 million? J. Biden, son and brother net worth tens of millions? Clinton family, $200 million plus? Whereas the pre-election of BC was less than $1 million. Obama family, $40 million. Pre-election less than $1 million, disguised under book deals. Those who take are offered more powerful positions within the party, controlled, drain the swamp. And then he adds a postscript. U.S. taxpayer gives to the federal government, of course we are compelled, federal government, Hussein, gives to Pearson Publishing gives back to Hussein, and Biden, follow the money, corruption, Q. Michael Kudry writes this on Twitter, and Q sent us the link. Obama gave Pearson Publishing a government contract worth $350 million for their work to create the Common Core text for his administration's education initiative. A subsidiary of that same publisher gave Obama roughly $65 million for his book deal after he left office. Sounds like quid pro quo to me, and a way to get that nasty Common Core into the hands of our teachers, into the schools, and placed into the minds of our kids. So this is the next part of that same post. Do you believe in coincidences? Q. So here's a little piece by Market Watch about Pearson Publishing. The CEO right here is John Fallon. He's planning to retire next year, and Pearson has agreed to sell its remaining 25% stake in Penguin Random House to a German company called Bertelsmann for $675 million. But wait, there's more. Here's Joe Biden with his book, published by Penguin Random House, Promises to Keep. And of course, it was a New York Times bestseller. You know how they do that. They have certain of their buddies buy huge quantities to keep them at the top of that chart. And this little piece right here just tells us that they had a 50-year association, Britain's Pearson and Penguin Random House. I wonder why they decided all of a sudden to sell that stock. And we know that George Soros is behind a lot of this stuff. Penguin Random House is owned by Pearson Publishing, and George Soros is in there because he supports Common Core and some of the educational associations, and I'll get to that in just a minute, and it's all one big happy family. So their sales at Pearson Publishing is $8 billion worldwide, half of that in America. They were awarded Common Core. They're owned by Bertelsmann, in a German company, and George Soros is one of the major investors in Bertelsmann. And then we have the president and publisher of Penguin's Random House, Crown Publishing Group, announced in March of 2017 they would publish in the U.S. and Canada 2 separate books to be written by former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama, respectively paying them $65 million. In 2015, Soros owned 317,534 shares of Netflix, And then in 2018, Barack and Michelle created their own movie production company called Higher Ground Productions. They then went on to sign a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix to produce the films. George Soros, via his Open Society Foundations, is listed as a funding partner of the National Association of State Boards of Education, or the NASBE, which partners with Open Society and Bill and Melinda Gates, their foundation, and textbook giant Pearson Education. NASBE has received roughly $5.5 million in grants from the Gates Foundation, much of it to help the state boards implement that crummy Common Core standards into our school system. Now, in addition to Obama's $65 million book deal, both James Comey and Andrew McCabe, the disgraced former employees of the FBI, also were provided with book deals by Macmillan, Flatiron, and St. Martin's Press, all owned by Pearson. Penguin's big names include Stephen King, Terry McMillan, Jackie Mitchell, and Bill Gates. Those that scream the loudest are the ones that we should be looking at. I also wanted to bring this out along the lines of George Soros. We have UK's new Prime Minister Boris Johnson calling for an investigation into Soros for funneling $3.5 million into anti-Brexit campaigns leading up to 2016. AG Bill Barr also called out Soros a couple of days ago for subverting our legal system and our elections because he gives multi-millions to certain candidates that are running for those DA positions, judges, etc., because that's how you corrupt that arm of our government, is through socialist type judges and DAs. Rudy Giuliani also wrote, Soros has funded many enemies to the state of Israel, including groups that support BDS, whose ultimate goal is to destroy the Jewish homeland. Those who oppose these groups are not only better Jews, but better people than him. Most certainly not anti-Semitic. So, George Soros, if you're new to this whole understanding of the Great Awakening and what's really been going on all these years we were not really paying attention to, George Soros, as a 14-year-old, was hijacked as a kid by the brown shirts in Germany, and he was forced to turn in many of his little friends and their families, and he's a Jew. And he went on 60 Minutes, I believe it was, and or maybe it was Nightline, and he laughed about being told that he had to do that, and he said he actually liked it. That interview is very likely on Alex Jones's website if you want to go listen to it for yourself. All right, now let's move to the next Q post 3756. When will they ask the question? Something big is coming. Big is in all caps. We've heard this before, but it is getting further and further into the red pilling of the masses, and it's getting to be time for the question to be asked at the right time when the president and Q decide. And then the next post is 3757, God wins. So what's interesting to me is this is Marine One, the helicopter that lands on the south, I believe it's the south lawn at the White House. We have this group of journalists over here and the president walking back to the White House. And they have the opportunity to ask anytime they want. And the president calls on certain journalists, and I'm sure there will be some sort of a code or something, and he'll ask that journalist, and the journalist will have the Q question ready to go. And so obviously this is Q taking the photograph. All right, so let's talk about, wow, Crazy Nancy. This is Donald Trump's tweet. Wow, Crazy Nancy, what's going on? This is big stuff. And here is a post that is a little video clip from OAN that describes or shows Nancy and Paul and what they're doing to make sure he is also making money out of Ukraine. This says, OAN exposes those Democrats and their Ukraine ties. Joe and Hunter and Nancy and Paul seems like it's a family affair. What's going on here? Pay attention to 1 minute, 13 seconds in this video as it has been removed from social media. Post 3758, they're fighting for their lives. Good people in place. Q. And the video starts off, I believe, with this little clip of Joe and his son, or this little image. And then also included is a YouTube video from NRG Lab and New Technology, published March 5th of 2013. Talks about Visk Oil, and it is Paul Pelosi Jr. talking about his relationship with this company and all the new things they're going to do with fuels. It is a Ukrainian company. And the beginning slide says, in September of 2010, Visk Oil Corp. LLC was invited to attend the X Prize Foundation's annual competition held in Washington, D.C. Then the little clip at the bottom says Paul Pelosi Jr. is a member of management team of Visk Oil Group of Companies and NRG Lab. Paul Pelosi Jr. is interested in developing clean energy that can replace gasoline and diesel as transportation fuel sources. And what's so interesting is he says nothing in this clip because he knows nothing, because it's all an act. It's all a play. Just another way to steal money from the American people. All right, 3759, post drop, question mark, 5 for 5, question mark, Q. So 30 minutes after Q drops this about Paul Pelosi Jr., Donald Trump retweets the "Wow, crazy Nancy, what's going on? This is big stuff." This is 2 hours after he first posted it and 30 minutes after Q's drop. So let's dig a little bit more into Hunter Biden and what's come out lately. He has a paternity suit against him filed by London Alexis Roberts in, I believe it's Arizona. She's 28 and she has a 1.5-year-old son that she claims this guy fathered. So there's a private investigation firm looking into Hunter Biden, and they say that he's the subject of criminal inquiries for fraud, money laundering, and a counterfeiting scheme. So they filed documents in this Arkansas paternity case. And then Hunter filed a motion to strike down the claims, and his motion succeeded. He argued the notice is filed by a non-party simply to make scandalous allegations in the pending suit to gain some media attention. And one of the investigations is related to his work with Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian company. Biden and a group of businessmen established bank and financial accounts with Morgan Stanley for Burisma Holdings Limited for the money laundering scheme. And this is the claim by this private eye firm. It said their accounts showed an average value of nearly $6.8 million between March 2014 and December 2015. Devin Archer, John Galanis, and Bevan Cooney, the associates who were supposedly working with Biden, allegedly utilized a counterfeiting scheme to conceal the Morgan Stanley average account value. And lo and behold, look at this. This is Hunter Biden's swanky home in Hollywood Hills. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, mid-century modern home valued at $2.5 million. He bought it in June. We don't know how much he paid for it, but he owns this with his I don't know how many wives he's had. I think this might be his third wife, 32-year-old Melissa Cohen Biden, and she's pregnant with another child. So he's going to be questioned under oath at a hearing in this paternity case on January 7th of 2020. I feel so sorry for children that are brought into the world under these circumstances, but thank God this woman did not abort him, and hopefully he will be supported well by a man. Well, I guess his assets will be seized, but maybe she'll get some money before he goes to jail. Rudy Giuliani writes, a trial in the Senate would not only reveal how unlawfully the Democrats have conducted this impeachment inquiry, it would also expose the corruption that stretches far and wide in the Democrat Party. This is why Pelosi has halted the impeachment sham. All right, now, as far as we know, she's still holding on to these documents and she's biding her time. We'll see what happens. What an interesting premise going into the new year. All right, 3760. Barr asked the question that needed to be asked. This is Todd with Trump. What was their agenda after the election? Why did they keep pressing for more FISA abuse? They lie, cheat, and steal from we the people. All right. So I'll play the clip, but I want to just repeat what he says because it's so important. He's talking about a prosecutor or an investigator. He said, I told him he should spend just as much attention on the post-election period because some of the stuff Horowitz has uncovered, which to me is inexplicable. Their case collapsed after the election and they never told the court and they kept on getting renewals, falsifying documents. There was all kinds of withholding of information from the court. The question really is, what was the agenda after the election that kept them pressing ahead after their case collapsed? This was the President of the United States. All right, so here's the clip.
What I said is their case collapsed after the election, and they never told the court, and they kept on getting renewals on these applications. There was documents falsified in order to get these renewals. There was all kinds of withholding of information from the court. And the question really is, what was the agenda after the election that kept them pressing ahead after their case collapsed? This is the President of the United States.
Very well said. So, obviously more coming from him. Now, the next Q post, CNN's Brian Stelter is calling out President Trump's retweets this morning of QAnon accounts. He claims this is very unpresidential and is in full-blown panic mode about the president sharing the name of the alleged whistleblower. I'm not going to play that clip, but it's interesting that this is CNN and Brian Stelter, who is probably one of the worst offenders after Rachel Maddow, who was actually called out by OAN, and she says, well, you can't really believe everything that I say. This is according to the lawsuit. She's trying to say now that you can't take her word for what she says is fact, and yet she's still on the air. How? Anyway, okay, moving on. The next one is this. Natasha Bertrand writes, new, the CIA director herself may get drawn into the Barr and Durham probe as they investigate rumors about Joseph Mifsud. As London station chief in 2016, Haspel was briefed on the Russia-linked professor's contact with George Papadopoulos, per sources. She said it sounded like an FBI matter, according to the IG report, which redacts Haspel's name. That would seem to pour cold water on the unsubstantiated theories that Mifsud was a CIA asset, as some Trump allies have alleged. All right, so this is the rest of that post, 3762. Let's go back. Let's start with this. So this is from 2018, and it's government documents from the Director of National Intelligence, and Q says, Nicholas Rasmussen, important name to remember, former director of the NCTC, and then a link to the McCain Institute, Nicholas and Rasmussen. So this guy worked for John McCain. Think FISA, think No Name. White House visitor logs, No Name, Hussein, dates, and then visitor logs, No Name, Brennan, Hussein, dates, No Name, Brennan, Comey, Hussein, dates, No Name, Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Hussein, and dates. So these are all captured on the White House visitor logs, replaced by, and then a link to another DNI document, NCTC, Who We Are, Director NCTC, Defense Intelligence Liaison to British Intelligence in London, think UK, current Director of the C_A, and then a link to that organization's document, leadership, and then Gina Haspel, UK bio removed from that explanation of who she is and what she's done, then C_A's station chief, London, UK. And then a quote, furthermore, Haspel is seen as a Russia expert and close ally of Britain's MI6, being London station chief from 2014 to 2017, and then an article from The Guardian, and he says the more you know. All right, now an update. Haspel made director for a specific reason. Brennan tapped directly for support. Brennan, and then class, section, division, spy underscore T. If C underscore A was running black op, spy underscore T, in UK, would Haspel, the station chief, be informed and instructed? MI6, so that's their foreign spy agency. Meetings with Durham, question mark. The only way to restore faith is through transparency and accountability. Signed, Q. So I was thinking about this. Does this mean that he tapped her directly to support him, and now she's been made she's been made director for a reason, a specific reason, because she knew all of this, or I don't know. Sometimes the Q stuff, guys. I know many of you are really up on this, and so please put your comments below. 3763 is Gina C. Haspel, Central Intelligence Agency career timeline. And here she started, this starts at the present and goes back to 1995, and it shows chief of station and then classified location, Europe division, she's chief of station, and she's deputy director of the National Clandestine Service. So she's had lots of interesting jobs. And then Q writes, page 1-926px Gina underscore C underscore Haspel underscore C blank A underscore career underscore timeline, and then May 1st of 20 whatever, and that's the JPEG, and then geolocation 2015 through 2017. And that was Europe division. And the double Qs, I think this possibly refers back to a photograph that Q showed us of London. I'm not 100% sure on that, but this is usually the eyeballs looking at something. So I would imagine when we saw those images of London and Strzok and Page, that this was linked to her. Then the next post is this interview. Hannity interviews Julian Assange, and he tells Hannity that his source for WikiLeaks was not Russian. He said it was not a state actor, it was not Russia. Then Q writes, DNC servers, CrowdStrike. Did Russia break into DNC servers? Why did FBI accept indirect evidence regarding DNC servers? So, as a background for anyone who's new, when the DNC was claiming that their systems were hacked, instead of giving the evidence over to the FBI to look into, they gave it to a private group called CrowdStrike, who's the guy who started it is either Russian or Ukrainian. And Donald Trump asked Ukraine he mentioned the word CrowdStrike and look for the servers in Ukraine, because it was impossible, and Q gives us more information on this in a minute, but it was impossible for them to have done a hack to get all that information. It was just too much. So, why did the FBI accept an indirect evidence given to them by CrowdStrike saying it was a hack by Russians? And then he has in brackets Ukraine, question mark. Why didn't FBI directly investigate the DNC servers in hand, take them in hand? Download speed, internal data, download versus remote. And then he has in brackets 1. Okay, so the next part says, how does one provide content to WikiLeaks? Comp to comp, person to person, 1. Or computer to computer. Personal comms secured prior to release. And then there's 1. The sources, feeder 1, recipient 1. Interning for the DNC can be deadly. And there he's referring to Seth Rich, who is, we all believe, the one who took the data and gave it to WikiLeaks, and then he died 2 weeks later. They called it a robbery gone bad, and yet nothing was stolen from him. He was just walking on the street. Does CrowdStrike possess government capability to trace break-in routes. Does CrowdStrike possess government capability regarding foreign intercepts? Possible to layer/insert code CrowdStrike to designate intruder, intended target. NSA data bridge, DNC CrowdStrike, bulk data collection, matters of national security, highest levels, FISA is only the beginning, the hole is deep. Then we had some fun memes. So here's James Comey in a redwood forest using his little favorite expression, oh lordy, and here comes a peppy bullet that says treason, and then this little pink thing here says, from Fox News, DOJ will not prosecute Comey for leaking memos after IG referral source. Bigger slam dunk charges coming. Public understanding of events just around the corner. Q, and then an Anon writes, future will prove past. Then I love this one. So we've got McCabe and Comey behind bars in their orange jumpsuits. And McCabe's holding the book, What Happened? Hillary Rodham Clinton. And Comey's holding his book, A Higher Loyalty, James Comey. And then there's 3 boxes of Depends men's underwear over here on the side. Okay, so this next one is something that came out. This is, I think it says August. I think it's 2017. Democrat National Headquarters. A new report raises big questions about last year's DNC hack. And this is from The Nation. I wanted to read the first paragraph above this that Q gave us. The article is a really long one. Research into the DNC case took a fateful turn in early June when forensic investigators who had been working independently began to share findings and form loose collaborations wherein each could build on the work of others. In this small new website called Disobedient Media, proved an important catalyst. The two independent researchers selected it, Snowden-like, as the medium through which to disclose their findings. One of these is known as Forensicator and the other as Adam Carter. On July 9th, Adam Carter sent Elizabeth Voss, co-founder of Disobedient Media, a paper by the Forensicator that split the DNC case open like a coconut. Okay, so the Forensicator's first decisive findings, made public in the paper dated July 9th, concern the volume of the supposedly hacked material and what is called the transfer rate, the time a remote hack would require. The metadata established several facts in this regard with granular precision. On the evening of July 5, 2016, 1,976 megabytes of data were downloaded from the DNC server. The operation took 87 seconds. This yields a transfer rate of 22.7 megabytes per second. These statistics are matters of record and essential to disproving the hack theory. No internet service provider, such as a hacker would have had to use in mid-2016, was capable of downloading data at this speed. Compounding this contradiction, Guccifer claimed to have run his hack from Romania, which for numerous reasons, technically called delivery overheads, would slow down the speed of a hack even further from maximum achievable speed. So there you go. But the mainstream media doesn't seem to care about the truth, of course. So a couple more things to look at. I think this is Jeff Bridges, right? You guys that know these things can let me know if that's him. And I don't know what movie this is from, but this little title says, "Let me get this straight. Biden blackmailed Ukraine with $1 billion in tax dollars to drop an investigation into his son, and Democrats want to impeach President Trump simply for asking if it was true." And this is from patriotpost.us. And Q asks the question, easy to understand? And then Susan Kennedy has a clip of Joe Biden right here bragging on how he forced Ukraine to fire their prosecutor who was looking into his son. Of course, he doesn't mention that part. So Susan Kennedy of USA Book Club writes, his corrupt father at Joe Biden should be under criminal investigation too. Joe Biden held back $1 billion until the Ukraine fired the prosecutor investigating his son's company, then lied about it. Okay, and I think that's the end of the Q posts. That brings you up to date as of Sunday morning. So now let's take a look at some other updates on some of the rest of the news. So Stephen Halper was the target of True Pundit, who wrote about his background as a CIA insider and soldier for 50 years. He ran almost identical illegal intelligence operations against President Jimmy Carter's 1980 presidential campaign. He helped his mentor, George H.W. Bush, win the vice presidency by defeating Carter. He worked from inside the White House to help undermine Reagan and boost the profile of Bush. And while Halper was employed inside the White House, he was setting up a mob-funded bank that funneled untold millions of dollars to Bush cronies and the Iran-Contras for the CIA. Even when Bush was elected to take the mantle from Reagan as president, Halper was working as a White House fixer and deep state liaison. That was before he was busted on a crack cocaine charge, an arrest the Justice Department helped smooth over in court. And he is one of the guys who set up George Papadopoulos. And then this came out. The FBI cut off Christopher Steele as a source to give them the dossier and other phony information. So John McCain and one of his staffers became a conduit between Christopher Steele and FBI Director Comey. According to the Durham report, McCain provided Comey with 5 separate reports from Christopher Steele, who was known to be very unreliable and a Trump hater. These were unsubstantiated allegations of Trump-Russia collusion, and Steele had already met numerous times with FBI agents to provide them with this controversial reports, but he was terminated as an FBI source because he spoke to the news media. He was a leaker, and yet they still used him to get information. Through this guy, David Kramer from the McCain Institute. He met with Steele and later acquired the reports from Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson. So they had a collection of 16 election reports from Steele, but through the McCain Institute they received 5 new ones. So David Kramer is the one who also provided BuzzFeed with the Steele dossier, and then BuzzFeed published it January 10th of 2017. Now this was interesting, thinking where McCain is right now. Perhaps he knows about hell better than anybody else. He admitted to personally handling the dossier. He said he had an obligation to do so to Director Comey, but he refused repeated requests for comment about whether he had a role in providing the dossier to BuzzFeed. And then he said anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. Okay, let's talk about the gun grab coming in 2020. So this is what's out there, and here's the background. These two are presidential candidates, Tom Steyer and Michael Bloomberg, for the D Party. And George Soros have been funding anti-gun groups and organizations. And they are very much behind all of this. And now we have this possible gun grab in 17 states. They're called red flag confiscation laws. They've been adopted by 17 states. They allow the courts to seize guns based on the assumption that a person will become a danger to themselves or others. So, the rights being violated, the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 14th, which involve unlawful search and seizure, deprivation of liberty and property, due process, and equal protection under the law. Virginia Sheriff Scott Jenkins has threatened to deputize thousands of citizens because he wants to protect constitutional gun rights. Other sheriffs throughout the nation have said they will not enforce these unconstitutional laws. There are 240 counties, cities, and towns in the U.S. that have passed protection for Second Amendment, and they're called sanctuary ordinances. The Second Amendment sanctuary movement began after Democrats promised new gun laws, and they took control in Virginia over both the House and the Senate and the governor's mansion. This was right after the November 5th election. So gun control advocates are now proposing all kinds of restrictions, including universal background checks, assault weapon bans, and red flag laws that would allow authorities to temporarily take guns away from people deemed dangerous to themselves or others. Well, I wonder how hard it would be to get your gun back once they take it from you. One Democrat state representative in Virginia told the Washington Examiner that Governor Northam could cut off state funds to counties that don't comply with new gun control laws and could even call in the National Guard to enforce the laws if necessary. And then Northam's press secretary sent out a statement saying, "Oh, no, we would never do that." So they're saying what prompted this was this mass shooting in Virginia Beach in May, and thus the warning against false flags used to get stuff like this rolling. So there's further evidence of some sort of a plot here. Northam wants taxpayers to pay for a $250,000 corrections special reserve fund. Why? To provide for the increase in the operating cost of adult correctional facilities needed for the expected violators of his new gun laws. So all of these measures are backed by candidate Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer, and of course supported by George Soros. Under Virginia law, a law enforcement officer may take an individual into emergency custody for a mental health evaluation without prior court approval. The person is then evaluated for a temporary detention. If he or she is voluntarily admitted to a mental health facility, they're prohibited from possessing firearms until their rights are restored by a court. And, they're saying this is a test case, and calling out the National Guard would be detrimental because there are many within the Guard that would not follow these unconstitutional commands from the state. Now, in case you have not heard this, I know this is old news, but on the 20th, the president signed an order creating the U.S. Space Force. And he said there are grave threats to our national security. American superiority in space is absolutely vital. The Space Force will help us deter aggression and control the ultimate high ground. This also came out, this is interesting, about Obamacare. A federal appeals court has just ruled that it's part of it, the individual mandate, is unconstitutional because the fine became zero, so they can no longer call it a tax, which is what got it approved by the Supreme Court, just one vote, Justice Roberts. And so now they're saying the rest of the law needs further analysis. It's unlikely to be resolved before the 2020 elections. And had the judges not returned the case to the lower courts, it would likely have been appealed to the Supreme Court and faced a decision on its survival just ahead of the election. All right, now I think I'm going to talk about wolves in sheep's clothing. This is really fast, just to kind of catch you up if you are not aware. And this is inside baseball for Christians, and it's just wolves in sheep's clothing. And Donald Trump nailed it. He said, "I guess the magazine Christianity Today is looking for Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or those of the socialist communist bent to guard their religion. How about Sleepy Joe? The fact is, no president has ever done what I have done for evangelicals or religion itself." All right, so here's the long and short of it. Christianity Today is a magazine that was founded, I believe, in 1958 by Billy Graham. Its editor, Mark Galli, writes an op-ed saying Trump should be impeached and saying all kinds of terrible things, which I will not repeat. He says because of this Ukrainian deal, right? So Franklin Graham fires back that his father, who founded CT, voted for Trump and he's disappointed in the magazine. Then the Christian Post writes an op-ed refining that their direction for them is to support President Trump. Well, actually, they just wrote a pro-Trump op-ed, and then when they were questioned about it, they said, well, this really is our direction. And then one of their editors quits. And then what becomes of that? A list of 200 leading evangelicals who support the president come out and say, we're standing behind Donald Trump, and a new political group is born, Evangelicals for Trump. And now they're going to have a rally in Miami at an apostolic church, which is said to be the largest Hispanic church in the country. So see, Democrats, what happens when you guys move against God, then the people of God just come out stronger and stronger. All right, I'm going to kind of skip through the rest of this because this is getting super long. There was a movie, Home Alone 2, that in 2014 was edited by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation because they needed 8 minutes to make up for commercials. So they cut out the scene with Donald Trump in the hotel. And of course, now they're saying, well, it was only for, we did it in 2014 and don't blame us and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. So whatever they can do to remove Donald Trump from mainstream, they are doing it. Now, I'm going to have to speak in code because I can't use this 4-letter word down here or I will get in trouble. But this guy right here took down an LGBTQ flag that was flying outside a church in Iowa, and he took it to a strip club and burned it in the street in front of a strip club. So now he's been charged with an HATE crime, and he is going to face 15 years in prison for the arson and another year for reckless use of explosives of fire. And he had a 30-day sentence for harassment. I have been saying this, maybe not publicly, but for a long time, that the Bible is in danger of having this sort of treatment because it spells out what God disapproves of, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to even say those words out loud, which I can't right now, or this video will get I'll get another violation because they don't listen. They just let their algorithms run this thing, and then they accuse me of using HATESPEECH. So we just need to pray that we will never get to the day where our scriptures are ripped apart in order to please a certain group of people. All right, now we're going to keep moving through. This guy was knighted by the Queen. He's 82-year-old Sir Ron Brierley, and he is charged over CP in Australia, which that is so interesting considering Prince Andrew and what's going to be happening with him. And I have to give you an update. I reported a few videos back that more video footage of Jeffrey Epstein from his outside his jail cell was lost, and now it's suddenly been found. I wonder if it's the same video or it's been edited. And then this is another update. Remember the Army-Navy game where the cadets did this, what they are calling a white supremacy sign? Well, it just comes out that they're actually doing the circle game, which is played when one person forms the OK sign with their hand below their waist, and another person, if they look at it, then they get punched. That's the game that they play, and apparently it was all just harmless fun. So here's some good news. Authorities dealt a staggering blow to the murderous MS-13 gang on Long Island, wiping it out. They bust 96 members and associates. So that's awesome. Thank you, law enforcement officials. And I had to bring this out. This is from the 20th. Donald Trump tweeted this, and he used the word smocking instead of smoking. And again, smocking in the Urban Dictionary is using body paint for sexual gratification. And these two we have this nice photo of them doing just that. That would be Valerie Jarrett and John Podesta. Okay, also, which was kind of interesting, I think this might have been on the 20th, I'm not sure, it's been so long. I've had these things in the queue and I just haven't had time to include them, so I determined I would do that in this video. But this is a verbatim Q post printed in Zero Hedge. It's the one about what happens when 90% of the media is controlled by 6 corporations, and talking about free thought and reason being divided and instead of being together. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. And then Stacey Abrams lost a court ruling. So the state of Georgia purged 309,000 inactive voters. She had lost in 2018 the governorship of Georgia by 55,000 votes. So she has a group called Fair Fight Action. They filed an emergency motion to stop this voter purge. And a judge sided with the state of Georgia, but also scheduled a second hearing. And the judge said that Abrams' group was improperly asking the judge to interpret state law, and said the group failed to prove anyone's constitutional rights would be violated as a result, and that any voter registration erroneously canceled could simply be restored within 24 to 48 hours. All right, this before I get to the sad news, well, I'll talk about the sad news. This is a group of 11 Christians were killed by ISIS in West Africa because of retaliation over the U.S. Armed Forces killing Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in October. But, the good news for believers is that we know where they are, and there is a martyr's crown waiting for them in a special place in heaven. So we thank God for people who stand fast in their faith, even when it comes to being in front of a firing squad, or in this case, they used, shooting, stabbing, and beheading. All right, now, if I can find on my Twitter line here. All right, watch this, guys. This is the greatest thing here. This is, let me start it over again. Here we have this truck in West Palm Beach, Palm Beach, and it's got this.
Trumpy, yeah, baby, Trump 2020.
Goes through Trump electronic images that are amazing. I've never seen anything like this on a truck before. It's like a moving billboard. All right, so there's another one that shows it coming around the corner. Let me see if I can find that one. All right, this is posted by Donald Trump. He says tremendous spirit at the top, and it rounds the corner, and there's a like a little parade here, and it says Merry Christmas. I think it says I'm still president, but I'm not sure. I mean, I can go to that and just, oops, I can't get it to stop. There we go. I think it says I'm still president. Merry Christmas. So that is just super. I love that. All right, we'll finish up with scripture. And Father, we just thank you for our president who's one in a million. And we ask for you to keep him safe and strong and healthy and walking with you, Father. Keep him humble. We ask it in Jesus' name. We thank you for people who stand strong for their faith. And we thank you for Q. And Father, we ask that you help us wake up this sleeping world to the truth, because anyone who pursues truth will eventually find the man who is truth, the God who is truth, Jesus Christ. All right, so amen. And I want to just leave you with Romans 8:38 through 39. For I'm persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature, including George Soros or the deep state, shall be able to separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Thank you all so much for being with me. I hope you had a good Christmas. I have had family. It's just been amazing. All my kids are in town and their wives, and I have a grandbaby, and it's just been an awesome season, so I haven't been putting up very many videos. But they'll all be returning to their homes, and I will get back on schedule. And I just want to wish you all a very good new year and just the blessings of the Lord as you walk in obedience with Him. Thank you all so much. I will see you next time.